everybody, I'm Shaina and today I will talk about an important topic in our environment, and that is ecosystem. So today our topic is going to be ecosystem and we are going to talk about that. So what do we understand by the term ecosystem? Ecosystem is basically the most important part of the biosphere that comprises of all the living organisms along with the non-living surroundings and the non-living things around them. The term ecosystem was first coined in 1935 by the British ecologist A.G. Tansley. So, ecosystem, as said, comprises of all the non-living and the living things. So, ecosystem basically has two parts, abiotic and biotic. Abiotic and biotic are basically, biotic includes all the living organisms and abiotic includes all the non-living organisms. Biotic further has three parts, which includes the producers, the consumers and the decomposers. So these are the three further division in biotic components, which includes the producers, consumers and the decomposers. Producers are basically the plants and the green algae or some bacteria that produce their own food through the help of photosynthesis. And you can see my other videos to know more about photosynthesis as well. So producers basically are all those organisms that perform autotrophic mode of nutrition to make their own food. And like I said, some examples could be plants, a few algae, a few bacteria, etc. Next we have consumers. Consumers are basically the next important part of the biotic component, which includes all the basically the animals that do not make their own food and all the organisms that follow heterotrophic mode of nutrition. That means they directly or indirectly depends on plants for their food. So consumers can include all the animals. It includes fungi, it includes some bacteria, then parasites. That all comes under consumers. Consumers can be secondary or tertiary as well. Primary, secondary, tertiary. Consumers again has three parts: primary, secondary and tertiary. So primary consumers are basically the consumers that directly depend on producers for food. So that can include your herbivores such as deer, cow, buffalo, cattle, etc. Next comes the secondary consumer. Secondary consumer are the next level consumers that depend on primary consumers or producers for food. Secondary could include lion, tiger, and the tertiary consumers basically, when in a food chain there are different levels of there are different animals that form a food chain. So the last animal that comes in a food chain comes under the tertiary consumer. Now let's move on to the third part of the biotic component, that is decomposers. As the name suggests, decomposers are the organisms that decompose the wastes into substances that can be directly or that can be easily mixed into the soil. And this nutrient that gets mixed in the soil is later taken up by the plants or the producers to convert it into their own food. So basically all these three, they form sort of a cycle. The producers, consumers and then decomposers, sort of a cycle formed. So decomposers basically are those microorganisms. They are too small to be seen with the naked eye. So those are the microorganisms that convert that decaying waste matter into decaying waste organic matter into soluble substances that can easily mix with the soil. Basically that is the function of the decomposers, and it can include some bacteria and fungi like I already said. So as I mentioned, that it forms a cycle. So basically, a food chain. Let's talk about a food chain, which is related to this only. So food chain is basically a chain or a cycle that is formed that helps create balance in an ecosystem. So food chain includes the producers, consumers, and as well as the decomposers as well. The food chain could be, a simple food chain could be grass, which is eaten up by a deer, which is eaten up by a lion, or grass, which is eaten by a grasshopper. A grasshopper could be eaten by a frog. Frog can be eaten by a snake. And snake gets eaten by a eagle. This is a food chain. These are the two examples of food chains. So, and when, for example, two food chains, they get interlinked or they get connected, it forms a food web. And that's, you can say, two or more food chains combined together to form a food web. So basically, in the food web, an organism, for example, a lion, I'll make a food chain. Grass is eaten by antelope, and a lion eats an antelope. So basically, when all the different organisms are interconnected, that forms a food chain. A food web. So you can see grass, antelope, lion, that's one food chain, and grass, deer, lion is another food chain. And since they both are connected, it forms a food web. So that was food chain and food web. Now coming on again to the biotic component, as I was discussing. So producer, consumer, decomposer also similarly form a cycle. So producers, they make their own food that may include your grass or plants. Plants is eaten by the primary consumer, which includes the herbivores. Now the primary consumers are eaten up by the secondary consumers, which may include your lions or your tiger. Then your tertiary consumer, that depends if, for example, if you have any other animal that further eats up the secondary consumer, and then after that, when the secondary or the tertiary consumer dies, that decaying matter is converted into simpler substances by the decomposers. So that's how the decomposer again add back that nutrients into the soil and taken up by the producer. So basically, that was everything that occurs in the biotic component. Now let's come up to the abiotic side of the ecosystem. Abiotic side is basically nothing but all the non-living organism, which may include which you can say includes all the non-living things such as rocks, soil, or even the man-made things such as roads and bridges and houses. So abiotic component also you can say has further division that could be artificial, that's man-made, and some which are naturally occurring. Naturally occurring could include soil, rock, and other non-living things that we can see surrounding around us, and the artificial things could be the ones made by humans. So that was basically the two components of the ecosystem. So that was all about the components. Now I'll tell you that ecosystem again has various types as well. Ecosystem can be further divided into how an ecosystem is formed. Ecosystem could be on the basis of size, it could be on the basis of the population as well, or it could even be on the basis of the type of organisms that are living there. That depends, because for example, if there is no primary consumer, then there wouldn't be an ecosystem formed, because you need all the three components, the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers, for an ecosystem to be formed. So ecosystem requires those three basic components as well as the abiotic components to form what is known as the ecosystem, and it is an integral part of the biosphere. And what is biosphere? I've been repeating that in the video. So basically, biosphere is one of the 5 domains on Earth which comprises of all the living and non-living things, and it is basically a a sphere of interaction between the land, air, water, and all the living things. That's what a biosphere is, and it is one of the most important domains of the Earth. So that was all about ecosystem and biosphere. I hope you learned something new. And to learn more with me, please like and subscribe my channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to keep viewing my more videos. Bye bye. Thank you.